Good evening and welcome to the Kuhn Academy for this installment of AP US History, where we're not just learning history, we're making history. All right, we're going to talk to you tonight about the feminist movement, which we've been talking about women's history all throughout the course, going even back to colonial times, the Lowell Mill Girls, the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory, 19th Amendment, Rosie the Riveter, etc. Okay, but the feminist movement can be pretty much characterized as the 1960s all the way through 1982. We'll say why 1982 is significant at the end. Okay, but this is women kind of continuing that fight for equality that really began after they earned the right to vote in 1920. Okay, immediately thereafter, they started pushing for more legal equality in the Constitution and economic equality as well. Okay, so starting out, all right, sorry about this, we hit the wrong button here, sorry. So starting out, the experiences in the workplace throughout the 50s were really started to make women wake up a little bit, and they saw the widespread wage and job discrimination made a lot of women realize that they had an inferior status, that they were just not able to move up in the world. Okay, if you look in the cartoon here, it's actually from a couple years ago. The old expression, another day, another dollar. Well, this woman's saying another dollar, or another day, another 80 cents, because statistically, a woman makes about 80 cents for every dollar a man makes. And this is actually going to be a huge issue in this election in 2014. Democrats are really trying to make it a big issue about gender pay. All right, and then the social activism starts up in the 60s too. All right, we start to see the civil rights movement and the anti-war movement in Vietnam start to take shape, and women started to realize that they were treated unequally. If you look in this picture, it's all men near the front, for example. So the women were kind of silenced, just like during the abolitionist movement. A lot of women were initially sort of silenced in that and sort of pushed to the back and not allowed to participate or have a prominent role. So that caused them to fight for the abolition of slavery and the right to vote at the same time. Okay. Also, leading to this push for equality was something called consciousness raising. Okay, they needed to make people realize that this was a problem, that they were all in the same boat. All right, struggling together. So you see this suburban woman here hanging clothes on a clothesline. Okay, supposedly living the dream life of being a 50s housewife, but things were kind of miserable. Okay, so they realized that this was part of a much larger pattern. All right, in the 50s, in the suburbs, there was a lot of this isolation that women were experiencing. So when they started to talk together and make other people aware of their problems, the movement starts to grow. All right. So your definition of feminism, okay, make sure I move that so you can see that it's Women's Day, is the movements aimed at establishing and defending equal political, economic, and social rights and equal opportunities for women. Okay, so this is by definition what feminism is about, and really starts to take shape in the 60s. Okay, we usually attribute the beginnings of feminism to a book by a woman named Betty Friedan called The Feminine Mystique. All right, and here she's encouraging women to take action and pursue opportunities in the workplace. And she basically asked herself, "Is this it? All right, is being a mom and a housewife all that I have to look forward to? Is this all that there is in life? Do I wait till I'm 50 to start working?" And she called it the problem that has no name. She couldn't really describe what it was like, but just this feeling of emptiness and unfulfilledness, living as a suburban housewife. All right, so her book kind of started this movement and started encouraging women to get more active and involved. That's Betty Friedan, born February 4th. I'm not sure of the year, but don't know anybody else born on that day, but I know it's an important date in history. Okay, then we see the Civil Rights Act of 1964 passed, okay, by Congress. And this was actually done for equality for African Americans. We hopefully learned about this in class today. I'm filming this on Wednesday, but we're going to hopefully learn about that on Thursday, which is when you'll be assigned to listen to this. But the Civil Rights Act of 1964 banned segregation in public accommodations. Okay, but all right, so this was the tool for African Americans. However, all right, the bill was amended on the floor. All right, you can make amendments to bills in Congress, and it was amended. Originally, it said no discrimination in the workplace based on race, color, etc. And they added gender into that mix. Okay, no discrimination based on sex, and they did that in an effort to kill the bill. These were Southern congressmen that said there's no way they will ever vote for a bill to give gender equality in the workplace. So if we put this in, that'll lead to the bill being killed. And due to some clever maneuvering by the few women in Congress, they were able to persuade the majority of the House and Senate to vote and pass it. So it was kind of thrown in as an accidental amendment, but they did include gender equality in the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Right around the same time period, an interest group is formed called NOW, the National Organization of Women. They are still very prominent today, and they were going to pursue the social and political goals. They realized that they had power as a voting bloc, so they tried to get as many women together to vote and make issues. So now politicians will start to listen to women, okay? And they've pretty much been solid Democrats as voters since then. Another big name besides Betty Friedan is Gloria Steinem. All right, she is a little more active, a little more liberal than Betty Friedan was. She came up with something called Ms. Magazine, okay? And this was a way to inform women about what's going on. So think of this as your liberator or North Star from the abolitionist movement, all right? So by women talking about their problems, by writing articles about issues they're facing, all right? So you can look at the picture here, women having, 8 arms like an octopus trying to take care of the yard work, okay, get the kids to school on time, cook breakfast, do the paperwork, ironing, et cetera, okay? So this sort of, again, banded women together so they're more aware of the problems and issues that they were facing. All right. Then Congress banned gender discrimination, educational, and other activities supported by federal funds. You should know about this. We're going to actually debate this in government class next year. It's called Title IX. All right. So any school that gets federal money, i.e. Mundelein High School, has to have equal funding for men and women in education. Okay, so if you look in the 1960s, this law was passed in 1972. Go up to the library and look at a 1968 yearbook from Mundelein High School. You will not find one girls' sports team. Okay, after Title IX is when you start to see women's sports prop up, and it's actually done about a 400% increase in participation in athletics since it's been passed. Okay, they also expanded what's called the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission's enforcement powers, so they could go into different government agencies or different employers and fine them and punish them for not paying women equally or treating women equal in the workplace. And then they put in tax breaks for working women so they could write off their daycare expenses, okay? Because a lot of women, obviously having to put the kids in daycare, end up working for nothing. So the tax break was a way to give them more take-home pay while they're putting their kids into daycare, okay? The big court case, we love court cases in here, is called Roe versus Wade. And this was in 1973, so this is, kind of the height of the civil rights movement. And here, the court basically ruled that a state cannot outlaw an abortion within the first 3 months of a pregnancy, okay? Because a lot of states, especially in the South, had made abortions illegal. So this woman, her name was Norma McCorvey. Now, why isn't her name on the case? Because she went by the name of Jane Roe because she didn't want her name associated with the case. Norma McCorvey argued that her right to privacy was violated by by Texas by not allowing them to have her to have an abortion. So they used the right to privacy, which isn't in any specific amendment. The Supreme Court said that it was an implied right that's in the Bill of Rights. Okay, so we don't have it spelled out. It's not like the Fifth Amendment or the Sixth Amendment. It's just implied that there's a right to privacy there. So they said that states could not outlaw it in the first 3 months. Some states could allow it to take place or could outlaw it after that, and some states could allow it to go all the way through. But within the first 3 months, it is not subject to any government regulation. Okay, and that's Roe versus Wade from 1973. All right. And then finally, this was the big push that women had been fighting for, this Equal Rights Amendment. All right, this would have been the 27th Amendment to the Constitution. And it says that equality of rights under the law shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or any state on account of sex. Okay, so there's no discrimination, no taking of equality on the basis of sex. And Congress shall have the power to enforce the law, and it will take effect 2 years after its ratification. Well, this amendment passed the House, and it passed the Senate, which we know is the first phase in getting an amendment passed to the Constitution. Okay, that's called the proposal phase. So it did pass just like the child labor amendment we talked about a couple weeks ago. However, 3/4 of the state legislatures did not approve of it. It fell 3 short. Okay, and the final state to vote on this that would have given it a chance to survive was, yes, you guessed it, the great state of Illinois. Okay, we said no, and it did not pass. One last woman I want you to know about here is a woman named Phyllis Schlafly. All right, she led a group called the Stop ERA campaign, okay, or Equal Rights Amendment. All right, she wanted to stop ERA because she felt that this would be damaging to the family and lead to an increase in divorce and more gay marriage, and breakdown of your traditional family values. So she opposed this, and actually was handing cookies to legislators walking into the Illinois General Assembly when they went to vote on this bill. So women were as active in stopping this as they were in passing it. All right, well, thank you for listening to the Kuhn Academy. We'll talk a little bit more in class about this on Friday. And remember, we're not just learning history, we're making history.
So